Okay, so welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into the world of Marcus Aurelius Antoninus.
Right, the famous Roman emperor. But, maybe more importantly for us, a real seeker of wisdom.
Exactly. And we're diving deep into Meditations, which wasn't really a book in the typical sense. It was his personal journal.
Completely private thoughts, not meant for publication, which is why it gives us such a unique, sort of unfiltered look inside his head.
And that's our goal today, really, tailored for you listening,
Yeah.
pulling out the key knowledge, the core insights, quickly but thoroughly.
Exactly. It's the intimacy of it that's so powerful. We're getting his private directives, his self-talk. It's like looking at the source code of his mind almost.
Let's set the scene a bit. Born way back in AD 121, came from a pretty distinguished family line.
Yeah, apparently traced back to Numa, that famously pious early Roman king. Maybe a hint of where Marcus's own, well, serious nature came from.
Interesting point. And tragically, his parents died young. He was raised primarily by his grandfather, Annius Verus.
And by all accounts, a very loving relationship. It seems like that's where he learned his first big lessons.
Yeah, he specifically mentions learning, gentleness, meekness, and crucially, how to avoid anger and sort of passionate outbursts.
That early grounding in emotional control probably set the stage for his lifelong focus on inner balance. It wasn't just an idea he picked up later, it was cultivated early on.
Seems like his character was noticeable even when he was young. Emperor Hadrian apparently nicknamed him Verissimus.
Meaning, most truthful. Quite the label for a young man, shows his integrity was already apparent.
And then came his philosophical training, heavily influenced by Stoicism.
Right. And for Marcus, Stoicism wasn't just abstract thought, it was very practical, focusing on virtue, reason, accepting what's beyond our control. You see that all through meditations.
It even extended to his lifestyle, right? Embracing simplicity, building physical toughness through things like wrestling, hunting.
Apparently, he was pretty brave facing down wild boars, or so the stories go. It was about testing himself, body and mind.
Yeah, the Stoic framework gave him let's say, a mental toolkit for dealing with life.
Yeah.
Not about suppressing emotions, but understanding and managing them through reason.
Precisely.
What I find really telling is how detached he was early on from the big Roman entertainments, like the chariot races.
Oh, yeah, the factions, the reds, blues, whites, greens, huge, intense rivalries.
Oh, frenzy. But Marcus apparently stayed aloof from it. Same with the gladiatorial games. He explicitly wrote about learning not to be fondly addicted to the racing factions.
That shows incredible self-control, doesn't it? Especially in that society. He was already cultivating this inner independence, resisting the pull of the crowd.
It really does, choosing his own values instead of just going along.
Okay, so let's get into the first book of Meditations. This is where he thanks the people who influenced him. It's fascinating.
It really is. He starts with family. His grandfather Verus, we mentioned gentleness, even temper, avoiding anger.
Then his father, he credits him with teaching shamefastness and manlike behavior, a sense of modesty and, well, manliness.
His mother taught him religiousness, generosity. Also, interestingly, not just avoiding bad actions, but even bad thoughts.
And contentment with a simple diet, a simple life.
And his great-grandfather gets a mention for making sure he got a top-notch education, public schools, good tutors at home, sparing no expense.
You can see how these combined influences built this foundation of, like, core values and a respect for learning.
Absolutely. Themes keep popping up. Virtue, self-control, hard work, needing few things, taking responsibility, doing things himself, not meddling, resisting gossip.
It's like his upbringing gave him this internal compass, something to navigate by later in life, especially with the pressures of being emperor.
Then he moves on to his teachers. Diognetus seems important.
Yeah, Diognetus steered him away from vain things like believing wild stories about magic or miracles without question. Critical thinking, basically.
And Diognetus introduced him to philosophy proper and other teachers, Bacchius, Tandisis, Marcianus, encouraged dialogues, the simple philosopher's life.
Kind of pushing him towards substance over just surface appearances in his thinking.
Then there's Rusticus. He sounds like he had a massive impact.
Huge. Rusticus apparently told him straight up that his life needed redress and cure, pointed out his flaws.
And guided him away from just wanting to impress people with fancy speeches, didn't he? Away from sophistry.
Exactly. No more flowery rhetoric or poetry just for show, favoring plain, unaffected writing. He also taught him readiness for reconciliation, reading deeply, not just skimming.
And crucially,
Rusticus introduced him to the works of Epictetus, the Hypomnemata.
Epictetus. Those notes, those discourses, That's bedrock stoicism right there. That must have been transformative.
Absolutely pivotal. Rusticus seems to have really pushed Marcus from just, intellectual potential towards practical wisdom, connecting the philosophy to actual living.
And Marcus himself says as much. He directly credits these people for shaping his core character. It really shows the power of good examples, good advice.
Makes you reflect on your own life, doesn't it? Who are those key influences? We don't really achieve these things in a vacuum.
So true. Okay, who else? Alexander the Grammarian
Taught him to be careful with language, blameless, and how to correct others gently, indirectly. A subtle point, but important for communication.
and Catullus. What was the lesson there?
Catullus taught him not to just brush off a friend's complaints, even if they seem unfair, to try and restore goodwill. Also, to speak well of teachers and genuinely love your children. Little things, maybe, but they add up to compassionate interaction.
Yeah, navigating relationships gracefully. Then his brother, Severus.
Severus brought kindness to the household, a sense of duty there, but also, importantly, introduced Marcus to these key philosophical figures known for their integrity. Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dio, Brutus.
Figures associated with the Roman Republic ideals, resistance to tyranny.
Exactly. And Severus apparently inspired Marcus with the idea of an equal commonwealth, a state based on justice and equality, really prioritizing the subject's welfare.
So broadening his view of ethical leadership.
Yes, and Severus himself was apparently a model of constancy in philosophy, generosity, hopefulness, trusting friends, being open and honest. A living example.
Okay, so after reflecting on all these external influences, Marcus starts to turn inward.
Right, this is where he starts dissecting the self. He talks about the flesh, the life force or breath, and the most important part, the ruling part, our reason.
And he really pushes himself, doesn't he? Don't let reason become a slave to irrational urges, to fears. Don't dwell on the past or worry endlessly about the future.
This is the shift. He's moving from absorbing wisdom to actively cultivating his own inner strength, his own resilience, putting that reason firmly in charge, which is pure stoicism.
Exactly. And this really sets the stage for everything that follows in Meditations, his search for the right principles for living, that constant pursuit of tranquility, focusing only on what he can actually control.
His thoughts and his actions, and that internal focus, that commitment, is what we need to unpack next.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've looked at Marcus Aurelius' background, his influences, and that crucial turn towards self-examination. Now let's get into the core principles he developed for living. Well, rightly.
He keeps coming back to certain key ideas, doesn't he? Earnestness, gravity, natural affection, freedom, justice, applying these to every single action.
Seeing himself as both a Roman and, more fundamentally, a human being.
Yeah.
Striving for genuine sincerity in everything.
It's about aligning who you are inside with what you do outside. Total integrity, moment by moment.
He even tells himself to act as if each action could be his last. Imagine that intensity.
Yeah, freeing himself from vanity, irrationality, hypocrisy, self-obsession, and complaining about his lot in life.
He reflects that you don't actually need much for a prosperous, even a divine life. Just stick to these basic principles. The gods don't ask for more. It's quite countercultural even today, isn't it?
Definitely. In a world telling you to always want more, he's saying true satisfaction comes from simplicity and inner discipline, focusing on the doing, not just the outcome or what others think.
And the discipline of thought is huge for him. He wants his mind to be so sincere, so peaceful, that if someone asked, "What are you thinking right now?" he could answer honestly without hesitation.
Aiming for a mind free from pointless struggles, envy, suspicion. Like a priest tending the spirit within, he says. That inner purity is where the strength lies.
He sees this internal clarity, this control over your own mental landscape, as the ultimate defense. If you can govern your thoughts, you can handle anything life throws at you.
Right. He uses that image of being a wrestler of the best sort, grounded, ready, accepting fate, but fighting the good fight internally.
And this ideal person, the one he's striving to be, focuses only on what's in their power, judgments, actions, believing that whatever happens, even hardship, is part of a larger necessary order.
And crucially, understanding that all rational beings are connected. We have a duty to care for each other.
But, and this is a key caveat, don't seek validation or honor from people who don't even live according to nature themselves.
Okay.
That's a sharp insight for today, right?
Absolutely. How often do we crave approval from sources that don't actually share our core values? He's saying true honor comes from living by reason and for the common good, not from popular opinion.
He gives himself some very practical rules, too. Act deliberately for the good of others. Think it through. Don't waver.
Avoid overly fancy language. Don't talk too much. Don't try to multitask constantly. Focus.
He wants his inner self, his reason, to see him as mature, responsible, ready for death without needing applause. These feel like solid tips for anyone wanting a more intentional life.
They really do. It's all about purpose, responsibility, self-reliance, living from the inside out, not being pulled around by external stuff.
He also values cheerfulness and self-sufficiency. That inner calm shouldn't depend on other people or circumstances.
Better to be inherently straight, he says, than to constantly need straightening.
And then he asks that killer question: what could possibly be better than righteousness, truth, temperance, fortitude, than a mind content with itself and its fate?
That really cuts to the core, doesn't it? It forces you to evaluate what you truly value. If these inner virtues are the highest good, then everything else, wealth, fame, pleasure, becomes secondary, maybe even a distraction.
Exactly. If the spirit within reason, self-control, care for others is supreme, don't let anything else compete with it. He warns against letting lesser things, like chasing pleasure, pull you off course.
He redefines what's profitable. It's not about material gain. It's about anything that strengthens your integrity, your modesty, your compassion, anything that forces you to break faith, lose shame, hate, suspect. That's a loss.
True profit is cultivating virtue and living by reason. That, he believes, frees you from the constant anxiety of wanting things or fearing loss.
Such a different way of measuring success.
He keeps hammering home the importance of the present task. Do it diligently, with integrity, meekly, without undue hope or fear. Cling to heroical truth.
Live that way, he argues, and no one can actually stop you from living a happy life because happiness comes from within. The focus on now feels so relevant when we're all constantly distracted.
It really does. And he uses that analogy. Physicians always have their tools ready, right? Scalpels, bandages.
We should have our core principles, our dogmata, as he calls them, just as ready, always accessible to understand both human and divine matters, which he saw as connected.
Dogmata, those fundamental beliefs guiding your understanding and actions. It's about having your philosophy ready for practical use, not just sitting on a shelf.
Exactly. Not just theory, but principles you can apply immediately, in any situation.
There's that really moving bit where he reminds himself he might die before he even gets to reread his own notes, his own meditations.
A stark reminder. Act now. Live by these principles now. Let go of vain hopes for the future. That awareness of mortality is a powerful spur to action.
It really is. He breaks down the self, body, soul, life force, and understanding. And the dogmata, the core beliefs, belong to the understanding. That's the command center.
Reinforcing the primacy of reason.
And he contrasts true human behavior, accepting fate, keeping the inner spirit calm and clear, with animal behavior, which is just driven by instinct, by appetites, by fleeting impressions.
We have the capacity for reason, for conscious choice. We should live according to exact and perfect rules. That's what makes us human.
He also talks about finding peace. People look for retreats, cottages in the country, seaside spots.
But he says the best retreat is always available within yourself. Your own mind, if kept well ordered, can provide perfect tranquility.
That inner retreat. Turn there often for renewal. What a powerful idea, especially when the outside world feels chaotic.
Absolutely. Your well-being isn't dependent on getting away somewhere. It's about cultivating your inner state wherever you are.
And he says it's easy, relatively speaking, to dismiss troubling thoughts, to regain that peace. Act according to your nature. Don't be put off by what others think or say.
If something is right and honest, just do it. Their opinions are their own, based on their own minds. Don't let external criticism derail you from your own moral compass.
It's that constant theme of inner authority, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trusting your own reasoned judgment.
Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive into Marcus Aurelius's meditations, looking at how his principles shape his view of the world and true value.
Right, so he's just emphasized finding peace within, that inner retreat, and not being swayed by external opinion if you believe you're acting rightly.
Exactly. Follow your own nature. And the common good, he sees those as intertwined. Don't let criticism stop you if the action itself is just.
He then has this interesting reflection on his own abilities. He admits he might not be naturally gifted with words, maybe not quick-witted in debates. He kind of accepts that as a potential natural limit.
But then he immediately pivots. Okay, maybe I lack that, but look at all the virtues that are entirely within my power.
Like what?
Sincerity, gravity, laboriousness, contempt of pleasures, contentment, needing little, kindness, freedom, simplicity, seriousness, magnanimity. The list goes on.
Wow. So his point is, don't make excuses based on what you think you lack innately. Focus on cultivating the character traits you can control.
Precisely. Things like complaining, being base, flattering people, being dissatisfied, finding fault, these aren't forced on you by nature, he says. They're choices. You can choose not to be that way.
That's incredibly empowering, isn't it? Shifting the focus from fixed talents to malleable character.
It really is. It puts the responsibility squarely back on you.
And then he boils things down to two fundamental rules for action. What are they?
First, do only what reason your ruling faculty suggests is for the benefit of mankind. Altruism guided by logic.
Okay, reason and the common good. And the second?
Second, be ready to change your mind if someone shows you you're wrong or points towards a better course based on justice or the public good, but only change for those reasons, not because it seems more pleasant or popular.
Reason, helping others, and intellectual humility, those seem like pretty solid pillars for navigating life.
Absolutely. A practical ethical compass.
He also draws a sharp contrast between what most people call good and what he considers truly good.
Right. Most people think of wealth, pleasure, fame, that sort of thing.
But he contrasts that with prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, virtues of character.
And he makes the point that if you hear someone praised for having the first set of things, it often feels a bit hollow, or you might even think, well, maybe they have too much. But if you hear someone praise for wisdom or justice,
It resonates differently. It feels genuinely good, universally acknowledged as good. That distinction highlights the superficiality of purely external goods.
exactly. It challenges you, the listener, to think about what you're actually pursuing, what constitutes real value.
Marcus seems convinced that if you follow this true method, focusing on inner virtue, you essentially can't fail in what truly matters.
Yeah, he says the souls of gods and rational people share this. They can't be hindered in their proper work, and their good, their happiness, lies in the disposition and practice of righteousness itself.
So our purpose and our fulfillment are found in living virtuously. It's not a means to an end. It is the end.
Which is entirely within our control, unlike external outcomes.
He then asks this really pointed question. If something someone does isn't actually wicked, doesn't come from a wicked place in them, and doesn't harm the community, why are you letting it bother you?
Good question. He's pushing back against getting worked up over trivial matters or things that are fundamentally harmless.
And he cautions against getting swept up in popular opinion about misfortune. Yes, help people who suffer external losses, but don't think those losses damage their essential being.
He uses that funny analogy, the foster father getting upset because the child lost his toy rattle.
Right, reminding us that many things people value intensely are, in the grand scheme, just rattles. Trivial. It helps put things in perspective, both our own troubles and how we react to others.
It encourages a certain detachment, a sense of proportion.
And then, that incredible line about revenge. The best kind of revenge is not to become like unto them.
So powerful. Instead of sinking to their level, focus on your own actions. Keep moving from one kind, sociable action to the next, keeping the divine or the highest principles in mind.
It's about resilience and maintaining your own integrity, isn't it? Not letting others' negativity corrupt you.
Definitely. Don't get consumed by resentment. Just focus on being the person you want to be.
He also comes back to the power of our mind, our reason, to shape how things appear to us. That internal command center is key.
Our judgments about events, not the events themselves, are often what cause distress. We have agency in how we interpret things.
And he reflects again on what's truly worthy of our love and attention. Not just basic life functions, not fleeting pleasures, not fame.
But what?
What should be dearest is living according to our own specific nature, our constitution guided by reason, acting with self-mastery, fulfilling our potential as rational beings.
If you do that, he argues, who cares about external praise? Valuing external things just leads to dependency, envy, fear.
True contentment comes from respecting your own mind, your own rational faculty. That leads to self-acceptance, better relationships, being in harmony with the universe. It really flips the script on conventional success.
It's a radical reorientation towards inner worth.
And he stresses his openness to being corrected. If someone shows him he's wrong in opinion or action, he'll gladly change.
Because truth is the goal. No man was ever hurt by truth, he says, but he is hurt that continueth in any error or ignorance. That humility is vital.
He then kind of sums up his resolve. Focus on what's mine, my thoughts, my actions. Don't be troubled by things outside my control, inanimate objects, irrational creatures, or even misguided rational people.
Use non-rational things sensibly. Treat other humans sociably and justly, and always call upon the gods or the divine principle in your efforts.
Stick to your sphere of influence. Classic Stoicism.
And then he holds up his adoptive father, Antoninus Pius, as a major role model.
Right, he lists all these qualities he wants to emulate from Pius. It's quite a list.
Constancy in decisions, fairness, piety, cheerfulness, sweetness, seriousness but without vanity, desire for accuracy, patience, not jumping to conclusions, ignoring slander, being free from fear or suspicion.
Contentment with little, enduring hardship, loyalty in friendship, willingness to listen to better advice, genuine religious feeling without superstition. Wow. Pius sounds like the ideal Stoic statesman.
He really does. For Marcus, Pius was a living embodiment of the virtues he was writing about, the importance of having those concrete examples.
And towards the very end, he reiterates that power we have, the power to exclude opinions and therefore to exclude grief and distress.
It's our reaction to events, our judgment about them, that causes turmoil, not the events themselves. Listen carefully to others, he advises. Understand their perspective.
And he concludes with this powerful thought. Happiness is attainable right now. How?
By forgetting the past, can't change it, trusting providence or the natural order for the future, accepting what comes, and directing your present actions towards holiness and justice.
Holiness meaning willing acceptance of your fate, your allotted portion. Justice meaning acting truthfully and for the common good.
Exactly. Forget the past, accept the future, act rightly now. That's the path to tranquility.
And he leaves us, and you the listener, with that fundamental question echoing through the centuries. Are you living according to your own true nature?
A challenging, timeless question to end on. Meditations really is this incredible guide. Cultivate inner virtue, accept what you can't control, focus on reason and the common good. True freedom, true happiness, it argues, comes from within.
Indeed.
Yeah.
A lot to think about there. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.